going on, everybody? It's Weather with Jonathan here, back again with another weather forecast. And in this video, we are going to be talking about my official spring 2024 weather forecast. And we are about to jump straight into the forecast, so I hope you guys consider liking and subscribing. So let's jump straight into the forecast right now. So starting off with the eastern coast and the southeast, I think it'll be much more wet and damp this spring, especially because you can see these are the total accumulated precipitation anomalies according to the CFS. And you can see this is March, way above average in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and a little bit of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Now this is April. It's still more above average in the Mid-Atlantic region. It's still above average in Florida and parts of Alabama, but it does go down a little bit in Georgia, South Carolina, and that area. But in May, we see that start to come back, and we see more above average rainfall in central Florida, and above average rainfall in Tennessee, northern Alabama, and Georgia, the entire state of South Carolina, and North Carolina, and southern Virginia. Then you can see in June, we have more rain than average in central and southern Florida, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, the entire state of Tennessee, southern Kentucky, the entire state of Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. And then some of that also does go up into the Northeast. So then we're going to go to the Northeast, and we're going to start off with March. You can see it is raining a little more than average in the Northeast, especially across New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is for March, you can see. And then in April, it does start to go down a little bit. You get less rainfall than average. I think you guys in the Northeast this spring will get on and off snow and rain. Now, the snow part will probably only carry until about very, very early April or late March, and then the off and on rain will carry into about June, and it probably will go on further than that. So then you can see this is April. Now we're going to move into May. You can see still about average in New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, and New Hampshire, but still below average in Maine, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. Then it gets back above average for the entire Northeast, Pennsylvania, all the way up through Maine in June. So now we're gonna end up looking at the north-central part of the U.S. specifically this portion of the United States. I think it'll be cold till about April, a little cool in May, and I think you guys could get some snow carrying into about April in these areas. Probably early April, maybe mid-April or to late April actually in Montana, North Dakota, and northern Minnesota. But this is March. You can see above average precipitation for North Dakota and northern South Dakota and parts of northern Nebraska, Iowa, and Wyoming, and less precipitation than average in eastern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the upper peninsula of Michigan. So I do think you guys up there in the north central part of the United States will get colder and snowier this spring. Now, I do think, like I said, the snow will only last until about maybe very early April, late March in these areas, probably early April. And then I think the cold will last until the end of April, and then it'll be cooler in these areas for May. And So you can see this is March. Then let's go into April. A lot less precipitation, and it is very, very dry for the north central U.S. Then it gets we'll start getting more precipitation than normal in northern and eastern Minnesota and Wisconsin, and western, northern, southern, and central, pretty much the entire western part of South Dakota, northern Wyoming, and the entire western and central state of Montana. And then it starts to get above average in terms of precipitation in Montana, western North Dakota, western South Dakota, northwestern Nebraska, northeastern Wyoming, and central Montana, too. And then it gets below average in the upper peninsula of Michigan, the entire state of Wisconsin, the entire state of Iowa, and Minnesota also. So now we're going to look at the South Central U.S., specifically this entire area right here. And I think this area will get pretty hot this summer, and I do think it will definitely be a lot more dry down in here, especially in Texas and southern Oklahoma, maybe a little bit of eastern New Mexico. Now, I do think you guys will have a fire threat too in Kansas, western Missouri, southern Nebraska, and eastern Colorado. But the main fire threat and extreme heat threat is going to be down in central Texas and southern Oklahoma. So you can see we're going to go to March. You can see below average precipitation in Texas and southern Oklahoma, and then above average precipitation in central and northern Missouri, the entire state of Kansas, eastern Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, and the entire state of Nebraska. And then you can see in April, above average precipitation for northern and eastern and southern Texas. Then for central and western Texas, you guys will be getting about average precipitation. Then much above average rainfall for western Arkansas, the entire state of Louisiana, entire state of Oklahoma, extreme western Kansas, and also including the rest of the state, and central and eastern Colorado and southern Nebraska. Now, May, it will get you will get below average precipitation in central and extreme southeastern Oklahoma, and a little bit of southern Arkansas and the entire state of Louisiana, and that dryness may continue a little bit into southern Mississippi and southern Alabama. But I do think that you will get a little more rainfall in Kansas, northern Oklahoma, extreme northwestern Texas, northwestern Arkansas, western Missouri, southern Nebraska, and central and eastern Colorado. And then that was for May. Now we're going to look at June. Below average precipitation for the entire state of Texas, average precipitation for Arkansas, Louisiana, and central and southern Oklahoma, then above average precipitation for western Kansas, eastern Colorado, northern Oklahoma, and the entire state of Nebraska. So now we're going to move on to the Northwest here, because we have got a pretty dry season on our hands, especially for this part of the Northwest. So I personally think it will be drier in the Northwest, especially for Western Oregon and Western Washington, especially in this area. So you can see for March, we have above average precipitation in central and eastern Idaho, and a little bit of northern Nevada and Utah, but much below average precipitation for western and central Washington and Oregon. And then in April, we have much below average precipitation for northern, western, and central Idaho and western Montana. Then much below average precipitation for the entire state of Washington and Oregon. And then as we head into May, still much below, well, not much below, but pretty below average precipitation for western Oregon, northern California, and western Washington. Central and eastern Washington, about normal to a little drier than normal. Same for central Oregon and eastern Oregon. Central Idaho, a little more precipitation than average. And northwestern Montana, a little more precipitation than average. Then June, again, much below average precipitation for northern Idaho, northwestern Montana, the entire state of Washington, entire state of Oregon, northern California, northwestern Nevada, and central Utah. So I do think we have a dry season on our hands for the Northwest, and this little strip will carry down through about northern and southwestern Utah and Wyoming. So I do think we have a pretty dry season on our hands for that area. So beware. I would not throw any waste on the ground, especially in the Northwest, because if it is something that is burnable, it could quickly get burnt up by something. If a small, tiny little fire happens nearby, it can quickly be burnt up by something, and it could cause a much bigger fire, especially in the forests of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. So I think you guys have a pretty big fire season on your hands in the Northwest, and I do not think you will be getting a lot of rain in western Washington and western Oregon. And I do think you will have multiple critical fire risks this year in western Washington and western Oregon. And I will give you guys updates for the Northwest on this dryness and fires, because I think I'm honestly pretty much 100% sure this will happen. Every model run is showing it being very dry, and I live in western or northwestern Oregon, so I will give you guys updates on what is happening. Obviously, I will tell you guys if there's anything going on. But let's get back to the video. So now we're gonna move on to the West Coast, or more the southwest. So southern Idaho, southern Oregon, the entire state of California, entire state of Nevada, entire state of Utah, and northwestern Arizona. I think you guys will get a lot less rain, and it'll be more dry. Now, I do not think it will be as dry as the Pacific Northwest, but I do think it will be pretty dry. As you can see, for March, we do have above average precipitation for the mountains of California, the entire state of Nevada, northern and southern Utah, southern Idaho, and southwestern Montana. Then much less precipitation than average along the entire coast of California and a little bit of northern and southern California, northwestern Arizona, and southern Oregon. So now we're going to move on to April. Still above average precipitation in the mountains of California, and above average precipitation in northwestern Arizona, entire state of Utah, southwestern Wyoming, and entire state of Nevada. Still below average precipitation for southwestern Oregon and northwestern and western California for April. Now May, above average precipitation for pretty much the entire state of Nevada, central and southern California, average precipitation. Now you will get below average precipitation for northern California and extreme western Nevada. Then above average precipitation for northeastern Utah, northwestern Arizona, and southwestern Wyoming. And then that was for May. Now let's move on to June. Below average precipitation for southwestern Wyoming, southern Idaho, southern Oregon, entire state of California, pretty much, if not average precipitation for central and southern California, below average precipitation for Nevada and northwestern Arizona, and if I did not already mention, the entire state of Utah. So now on to our last section for this video. Now, you can see this is going to be including the more desert Southwest, western Texas, southern Colorado, entire state of New Mexico, and central, southwestern, and eastern Arizona. So let's jump straight into it. So you can see, I think not just yet, but I think it will be much drier than average. I do think you guys will get a few fires here and there in the mountains of New Mexico, and a few fires um, in just scattered in some of the mountains in Arizona, especially southeastern Arizona, maybe northeastern Arizona too. So you can see below average precipitation for March in central and southern Arizona and central and southern New Mexico. I think this is right, and also much below average precipitation for western Texas, and at about average precipitation for southern Colorado. Now, much above average precipitation for northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, and northwestern Texas, and about average precipitation for southwestern, southern, and southern Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. So that was for April. Now let's move on to May. I think you guys will get, definitely according to this model, above average precipitation in northwestern Texas, southern Colorado, northern New Mexico, and northeastern Arizona. I definitely agree with that for May. And then about average precipitation for southern and southwestern Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. So then for June, I think you guys will get definitely average to above, a tiny bit above average precipitation in southern Colorado, average to below average precipitation in central, southwestern, and southeastern New Mexico and Arizona. And in western Texas, I think you will get below average precipitation for June. So thank you guys for coming and watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. My voice didn't sound the best today because I have a stuffy nose and my throat just doesn't feel terrible or the best. But yeah, I also just basically couldn't speak today. I'm sorry, you guys. But I hope you enjoyed this. I will be coming out with different updates for my spring forecast. I will not change it. Well, I will change it, but I will change it minorly and will give you updates as we get into spring. So thank you guys for coming and watching this video. Consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video with your family and friends. And thank you for all the support lately, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.